Greed can be a powerful ally.
Hey everyone, it's Master Aiden Kenobi here, and welcome back to another fanfiction video. First off, I would like to thank everyone who has subscribed, because we have just reached 500 subscribers. There will be a giveaway soon, so if you want to join that, you must be a public subscriber. There are many YouTube tutorials out there on how to change your account from private to public, so if you're unsure which one your account is, then watch one of those videos. In today's fanfiction, we will be discussing what may have happened if Anakin Skywalker left the Jedi Order with his apprentice Ahsoka after she was banished from the Jedi Order. This video will probably be the most interesting one I have done so far, so sit back and relax as we reveal what may have happened to the Chosen One and his Padawan in a very interesting and entertaining fanfiction that would undoubtedly change the Star Wars galaxy as we know it. In the original Star Wars timeline, Ahsoka rejected the Jedi Council's offer of being let back into the Order. Anakin tried to reason with her, letting her know how he feels about the Order as well, but it wouldn't be enough, as she would tell him that she needed to figure out things for herself, without the Council and without Anakin. Our fanfiction will start just after Ahsoka finishes talking to Anakin, only this time he will convince her to let him go with her and leave the Order together. Ahsoka, let me come with you. Maybe we can figure this out together. I felt like you do for so long. We can leave the Order, not as master and apprentice, but as friends. Okay, let us figure things out together as friends. The two former Jedi would journey together off of Coruscant. Anakin would let his wife Padme know of what had happened. Of course, she would approve, because this would make their marriage extremely easier. Anakin would no longer be bound by the ridiculous and hypocritical rules of the Jedi Order. He was free to use his powers to do whatever he wanted. He could now be a true Force user, just like his original master, Qui-Gon Jinn. On the other side of what had happened, the Jedi Council was very troubled, and perhaps their most fearsome and powerful Jedi had left the Order, as well as his extremely talented apprentice. Yoda and Mace Windu would conduct an immediate meeting of the Jedi Council to discuss these troubling events. The most troubled Jedi would, of course, be Obi-Wan. It was possible that he would never see two of his best friends again. Almost immediately, all council members would reach the council chambers and the meeting would be held. They would discuss what needed to change within the Order so that this would never happen again. The Jedi Order would need to open their eyes to the real world and realize that the Republic and the Separatists were not as black and white as they originally thought. During the meeting, the Council would agree that they should cut all ties to the politics of the Republic. They would stop fighting the war and recall all Jedi back to the Temple on Coruscant. Due to the Jedi releasing themselves from the war, the Separatists would swiftly win the war after a valiant stand by the clones. They were no match against the sheer size of the CIS army without their Jedi generals. The Republic would have to surrender and grant all demands that Count Dooku would ask of them. And finally, after many months of deliberation, the Republic would be reorganized into the Galactic Empire under the leadership of their new Emperor, Palpatine. The Jedi would have to relocate off of Coruscant into the Outer Rim. They would have to scatter themselves across many different Jedi temples throughout the galaxy. Anakin and Ahsoka would travel throughout the unknown regions and to the Outer Rim to ancient Jedi temples to search for old and lost knowledge. The two would always work as a team to conquer any task that challenged them. One day, while off on an adventure, Anakin would receive a transmission from his wife. She would tell him and Ahsoka about all the terrible things that were happening and being done by the new Empire and its leader. And lastly, she would hesitate while speaking, and Anakin would ask her to speak up. She would softly tell him that she was pregnant. Anakin would suddenly become full of different emotions, but the most prevalent ones were happiness and joy. He didn't know what to say. He was going to be a father. Surprisingly, Padme would speak in a worried tone, telling her husband of the danger she and their child would be in. She tried to convince him to come back to Coruscant, but he would refuse. He had to figure out these ancient Jedi secrets to become more wise and powerful. Suddenly, an idea would flow into Anakin's mind. What if he sent a message to his old friend Obi-Wan and asked him to go back to Coruscant to help protect Padme? Anakin would convince his wife that this plan would work, so she would reluctantly agree to his plan. And so, he would contact his old friend and master to plead for help to keep his wife and their child safe. Obi-Wan! Obi-Wan, are you there? Yes, Anakin, I can hear you. What is it? We need your help. You mean us? No, not Ahsoka. It's Padme. She's pregnant and is in danger on Coruscant. And I assume you want me to secretly travel to Coruscant and protect her until she gives birth to your child. Exactly. I mean, how many times did I save your skin during the war? You owe me one, after all. I do suppose you are right. I will do all I can to protect her, Anakin, but I can't assure you that Palpatine won't suspect me and have me imprisoned. If it comes to that, I'll just have to rescue you like usual. May the Force be with you, old friend. May the Force be with you as well. As the two ended their conversation, Obi-Wan would secretly travel to Coruscant as a regular citizen of the Galactic Empire. When he arrived there, the Jedi Master would meet the Senator at a local high-class bar. There, they would discuss the events that had transpired since Anakin had left the Order. In the deep regions of space, the Jedi would become even more powerful and in tune with the Force. This was because they were no longer entangled with the politics of the Republic, now turned Empire. Count Dooku, a former member of the Jedi and leader of the late CIS, would continue serving his master, Lord Sidious. This was the case even though Sidious still ultimately wanted Anakin as his new apprentice. But for now, everything was going the way he had planned, and Anakin would come back in time. He just needed to figure out how to draw the passionate man back to Coruscant. Anakin could sense something was going wrong. Even across the galaxy, he could sense his wife was in danger. Of course, Obi-Wan was still protecting her, but he didn't have complete confidence in his old master. Ahsoka could also sense a dark presence back in Galactic City. The dark side was growing stronger and stronger every day. Fortunately for Anakin and Ahsoka, the Jedi were already planning a raid on Coruscant to kill Sidious and rid the galaxy of the evil Sith. During the coming weeks, the Jedi would assemble themselves in one planet on the Outer Rim. Yoda and Mace Windu would hold an emergency meeting to prepare everyone for their invasion of Galactic City. Their preparation would take weeks. Mace and Yoda would need to go through the steps of each part of their plan with every Jedi Master. After that, each Master would relay the plan to their Padawan. Slowly but steadily, the day was coming when the Jedi would end the Sith once and for all. During these same weeks on a different planet, Anakin and Ahsoka were on a mission on the ancient Sith world of Malachor. In this world, the two would find many dark secrets about the Sith and how to defeat them. But once, suddenly, Anakin would drop to his knees and experience a very intense vision of his wife and the coming weeks. After his vision, Anakin would tell Ahsoka of what was to come. She would agree with him in the fact that they needed to travel back to Coruscant to rescue Padme from Palpatine. The two friends would travel back to Galactic City with their newly discovered secrets about the Sith. Anakin was going to save his wife, no matter what the cost may be. What Anakin didn't know was that the Jedi were planning to kill Palpatine at the same time he was planning to save his wife. This could have horrible implications for him. As soon as Anakin and Ahsoka arrived on Coruscant, they would evade Imperial troops and make their way to Padme's apartment. After arriving, they would hear the deep hum of Count Dooku's crimson red lightsaber. He was holding Padme and Obi-Wan hostage. Sidious had seen into the future and realized that both Anakin and the Jedi were traveling back to the new and improved city. They had already played directly into his hands. We meet again, Skywalker. My powers have doubled since the last time we met. Good. Twice the prize, double the fall. Anakin and Ahsoka would ignite their lightsabers and ready themselves for the fierce battle to come against Dooku. Anakin would lead the battle and take it directly to Dooku. Their lightsabers would clash over and over again, each twist and turn more explosive than the last. Ahsoka also had become much more powerful than when she had left the Order. Her twin sabers combined with Anakin's single would continuously keep the Count at bay. Dooku would realize that he would need to change his game plan. He would release one hand from his saber and face it toward Ahsoka. Immediately, strong bolts of immense Force lightning would shoot out of Dooku's fingers. Ahsoka had never dealt with Force lightning previously, but since they had left the Order, Anakin had taught her about this impervious Sith attack, and she had learned how to deflect it well. She would jump up high into the air, cross her twin blades together, and deflect Dooku's attack. While this was going on, Anakin would ramp up his attacks, using all aspects of the Force, the light, the dark, and everything in between. Dooku was realizing how much more powerful Anakin had become since they had last met. This was not a battle he could win 2-on-1. He would need to distract Anakin to deal with Ahsoka. Ahsoka, stay together. We can defeat him together. The three would continue their lightsaber battle across the apartment until Anakin and Ahsoka would corner him. As soon as this happened, Anakin acted fiercely, disarming the Count and driving his lightsaber through his chest, killing him. Anakin was no longer bound by the rules of the Jedi. Due to this, he took pleasure in killing Dooku. The two would immediately leave Dooku's body and look for Obi-Wan and Padme. After several minutes of searching, they would find them locked up and unconscious in a cabinet. Anakin was so happy. His wife was finally safe, and he finally got to see her again. He also began thanking Obi-Wan for doing a wonderful job of protecting her, until of course Dooku showed up. Ahsoka was also very glad that her old friends were safe. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case for very long. Anakin looked out into the distance of Galactic City, and he could see a massive ship entering the atmosphere, a Jedi emblem on the side of it. He immediately became angry, wishing the Jedi would leave him alone. Little did he know that Mace and Yoda weren't here for him. They were here for Darth Sidious.
Quickly and decisively we need to proceed. Strong the Emperor is, and guarded well he will be.
I agree. Masters Kolar, Tin, Fisto, and Kun, you're with us. Once the ship landed, each master and their Padawans would move swiftly to occupy the Imperial forces surrounding the Senate building and the Emperor's office. This assault would occur while the superior group of masters would sneak through to the Emperor's office. Before all of this happened, Obi-Wan would contact Mace and Yoda. They would tell him of their attack and what was planned. Obi-Wan would decide to stay with Anakin, Padme, and Ahsoka for now. The group was back together, and surely there was nothing that could stand in their way. At last, the battle had broken out. The Galactic City was full of chaos, blaster fire and humming lightsabers slashing through armor happening throughout the city. Mace and Yoda's superior group of Jedi Masters would swiftly make their way through the city and into the Senate building. The only beings in their way would be a few measly Imperial troopers. But of course, Palpatine had planned this on purpose. He wanted to confront the Jedi. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know that Anakin wasn't with this group of Jedi Masters. Back at the apartment building, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka were discussing what course of action they should take. Once Anakin figured out that the Jedi weren't back for him, he would know that they were here for Palpatine. He couldn't believe that the man he had trusted since he was a little boy was the Sith Lord that the Jedi had been searching for throughout the Clone Wars. At once, the three had made their decision. Ahsoka would take Padme back to the Outer Rim to keep her and their unborn child safe. Anakin and Obi-Wan would then travel to Palpatine's office together. When they arrived, they could see several lightsabers ignited inside the Chancellor's office. The group of Jedi had their sabers ignited, threatening Palpatine. They weren't here to arrest him. They were here to kill him, once and for all. Long have I waited for this very moment.
At an end your rule is.
It's treason, then. Palpatine would ignite his crimson red Sith saber, stand up, and force push all of the Jedi besides Mace and Yoda. He would then use a force scream to render the two masters off balance. These sequences of attacks would make Yoda and Mace realize that the group would need to stay together to defeat Sidious. Palpatine would fiercely fight Mace and Yoda until the other Jedi recovered and joined the fight. The Sith Lord would quickly realize that he would need to separate the group and kill the weakest links first. His first victim would be Master Kolar. Kolar was wise and a powerful Jedi Master, but he would be no match for the Dark Lord of the Sith. After a quick few strikes and blows, Palpatine would swing his lightsaber and knock Kolar's head clean off of his body. Sidious's next victim would be Master Tin. Again, Master Tin was a wise Jedi and a powerful one too, but it would only take another force scream from Palpatine to render Tin blind and then dead after Palpatine would strike the Master across his abdomen. The Emperor would choose his next victim to be Kit Fisto. He would last longer than the last two, twisting and turning, defending himself from Palpatine's attacks, until something unexpected happened. Obi-Wan and Anakin strode through the office doors. This would distract Fisto and allow Sidious to shoot a powerful blast of Force lightning at the Master. The blast would hit him directly, and Palpatine would use this opportunity to drive his saber through the Nautolan Jedi Master's back. So far, Palpatine's plan had worked perfectly and without flaw, but then he looked through the corner of his eye and saw new blue lightsabers ignite. It was his protege, the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. Mace, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, as well as Anakin, would form up and start attacking Palpatine immediately. This was the greatest battle in galactic history. Sidious was so fast and precise that all four Jedi would have to be very careful and decisive about when they were going to attack or defend themselves. If one were to look through the office from the outside, one would only be able to see slight flashes of green, blue, purple, and red. Again, the Dark Lord would need to change his plan. Obi-Wan was the weakest link, so he would try to take him out first. Not only that, but if he killed Anakin's best friend and mentor, it could drive him further and further into the dark side, and this was exactly what Palpatine wanted. So, the Sith Lord would attack Mace, Yoda, and Anakin first to render them distracted so he and Obi-Wan would be one-on-one. Palpatine would then figure out very quickly why Obi-Wan was called the Master of Surisu. Obi-Wan would defend himself very well. Palpatine would then ramp up his attacks and eventually find an opening, but before he could strike, another lightsaber defended Obi-Wan. It was Anakin's. The other three Jedi had recovered from the Sith Lord's attacks and were now back in the fight, helping Obi-Wan. Palpatine was losing energy quickly now. He was going to have to do something very quickly if his plan would have any chance of being successful. Once again, Sidious would use a Force Scream. It would have the greatest effects on Obi-Wan and Anakin because they weren't present when Palpatine used his last two Force Screams on the other Jedi. At last, all four Jedi were separated and weakened. Palpatine would move over to Obi-Wan and use a few attacks against him. At first, the young master would block each strike until Palpatine would use a combination of fast attacks to disarm Kenobi. He would then wait a few seconds until Anakin was watching. After he knew the Chosen One was watching, he would drive his crimson red lightsaber through Obi-Wan's skull, killing him. Anakin couldn't believe what had just happened. The man he had known and cared for since he became a Jedi had been mercilessly murdered right before his eyes. He would experience a flashback of all the important and fun moments he experienced with Obi-Wan. As soon as they ended, he would know what he needed to do. The Chosen One would rise off of the floor, more furious and powerful than ever. Mace and Yoda would stand, but Anakin would use the most powerful Force push he could conjure to throw the two Jedi at the wall, making sure they would not interfere with his fight against the Dark Lord of the Sith. Palpatine would rise and speak to Anakin. "Anakin, look what the Jedi have done. Become my apprentice and bring peace and order to the galaxy." Anakin could see straight through Palpatine's lies. This man had deceived him since he was 9 years old and had caused the death and suffering of many of his friends. Suddenly, the Chosen One would raise his mechanical hand and force choke Palpatine with the most fierce grip the Force had ever known. Palpatine would grasp his throat with both hands. Anakin would then release him and use the Force to speed over and move over to Palpatine. The Sith Lord would raise his saber in defense, but Anakin would knock it out of his grip with a few swift strikes. This was his moment to get revenge for everything Palpatine had done. The Chosen One would raise his royal blue saber and bring it down on Palpatine with a powerful blow that would kill the Sith Lord, restoring peace to the galaxy. After the Sith Lord had been destroyed, Anakin would contact Ahsoka and tell him what had happened. She would immediately be saddened, but also happy that Padme and Anakin's child were now safe. Anakin would then immediately leave Coruscant and travel to the Outer Rim to meet Ahsoka and Padme. This is when Padme would give birth to the twins, Luke and Leia Skywalker. Their father would train them both from birth, giving them all of his and Ahsoka's knowledge on all aspects of the living Force, as well as lightsaber combat and Force techniques. Yoda, Mace, and the rest of the Jedi that had survived the assault on Coruscant would establish a new republic with Bail Organa as its leader. All of the clones would then have their inhibitor chips removed, and then they would be given an early retirement. After they knew the Republic was stable, the Jedi would move back to their Outer Rim base and continue teaching new Jedi. They had finally learned from their mistakes and realized that the Republic would be better served without them at its center. At last, the galaxy was at peace, and it would be until the Skywalker children would be called upon to defend the New Republic from a new threat. And that is an end to our extremely long fan fiction. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please be sure to comment down below with your thoughts on all of the ideas I presented in the video. As always, thank you for watching, and as always,